Ladies and gentlemen, this is El Cochino, Tom Lawler, and I'd like to welcome you to the podcast that puts the lotion on its own skin, LuchaWorld. Bitchin'.
Welcome everyone to LuchaWorld Podcast episode number 94. Fredo Esparza here. Lots to talk about. From Alberto getting fired from Impact, the Copa Nuevos Valores final, Matt Taven beating Volador Jr., the first ever singles meeting between Mystico and Caristico, Jack Evans and Angelico quitting Lucha Underground, Zack Sabre Jr.'s comments about Mexico. So much to talk about this week. I mean, it was kind of interesting because I think we haven't been able to do a podcast for MLW's and an MLW Lucha Talk this in the past 2 weeks. We were gonna do one 2 weeks ago, but there really wasn't a lot to talk about. We had Matt Taven's win over Volador Jr., but beyond that, I mean, that show itself wasn't that interesting beyond that. And then there were some other things that really, it would have been a stretch just to come up with anything else to talk about. I think that's what hurts when AAA does all those TV tapings all within 1 week. There's nothing else to talk about the rest of the time. So that it was a very slow week 2 weeks ago. Then this past week, a lot happened, but unfortunately, Microman Fever's laptop crashed. Actually, the hard drive crashed, and he has to get that fixed. So we should be back to doing that podcast at some point. For those wondering where that is, why it's not been, why we haven't done it, we're experiencing technical difficulties with at the moment. So that should be back at some point. But this week, we finally got the finalists for the Copa Nuevos Valores, which will be happening on April 17th, the final, on Tuesday. It ended up being Magia Blanca versus Flyer. I think about right after they announced Astral had replaced somebody in the tournament, we started to wonder who he replaced. Actually, I don't even know if we, more like I probably was the only one that was really wondering about it because I don't think anybody else really cared about it at that point. And then like a couple of days later, someone told me that they were told that Audace and Templario were pulled out of the tournament, which pretty much made this tournament seem pointless. Because I think everybody assumed that this was a way for them to elevate Audace or Templario. But I'm assuming CMLL sees these guys just moving up on their own and not really needing a tournament. But I still think they probably could have used it for one of these guys. And then, at some point they have Gran Alternativa or some other match that can elevate the other. But they instead decided to go with someone different. They ended up replacing the two guys who ended up being added to the tournament and replacing them were, like I mentioned, Astral, and the other one was Principe Odin Jr., who's been around for like 20 years or so. So you knew right away he had no shot of being a Nuevo Valor and moving up. I mean, his time has passed. I think he's pretty much just a really good undercard wrestler at this point, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you need good undercard wrestlers, and if you've watched a lot of CML, you realize that their undercard talent, especially on the Rudo side, can be anywhere between good, bad, awful, whatever, okay, however you want to. Because really, you pretty much know what you're going to get from most of those guys anyways. But the tournament itself, I thought it was pretty good. The first week I thought was good. I thought that was the better one. The second week, I think it was a little more of a letdown because I think a lot of the guys weren't as familiar with it kind of looked like they weren't as comfortable against each other compared to the first week. There were a couple of good matches. I thought Super Astro Jr. had a couple of good matches. Flyer had a good match in this. I'm trying to remember who else had Coyote looked really good, but I figured you could watch it online. It's all up there on YouTube, on CML's YouTube channel. You could see the matches themselves, but I kind of wanted to just bring up what I thought about everyone. The only guy I thought that looked really bad in this was Retro. Like he truly fits that name. He kind of reminds me of what Matt Classic is supposed to be, but Matt Classic is like a comedy type of figure, whereas Retro, I think he's kind of trying to take that seriously. Physically, he kind of has that body, and his work kind of came across that way too, and I don't think that really works in today's wrestling unless you're doing comedy. A lot of guys were just looking okay. Astral, Graco, Magia Blanca, who reached the final, Reiko, Fugaz, Príncipe Diamante, Príncipe Daniel, Príncipe Odin Jr., all the Príncipes, they all looked just okay. I thought Príncipe Daniel, I know the last time I saw when he made appearances on Informa, he showed some charisma, but his style in the ring is, I think it's good enough where he could work opening matches in CMLL, and I think that would be fine. I don't know if he's got more of, if he could do more. I thought of the 3 Guadalajara guys, the one that kind of showed more was Fugaz. The other, I think they'd be perfectly fine if you want to bring them every couple of weeks to work Guadalajara, or, they work Guadalajara, but if you want to bring them in to work Mexico City, Puebla, every couple of weeks, that'd be fine. I think that would be fine. It would actually get rid of some of this, the same old that we get from some of the opening matches. A Reiko, Fugaz, Príncipe Daniel versus, maybe a Mexico versus Mexico City versus Guadalajara opening match might get some reaction, or, as a second match might get a reaction from the crowd on a Tuesday or Friday show. Same with Saturday or Sunday. Graco, I thought, looked okay. He was accompanied by Mije. Mije accompanied him and I think Coyote. With Graco, he dressed as a cowboy. I thought Graco looked okay. Príncipe Diamante, he wore these lime green pants, pull-away pants, basically, stripper pants. So all this time while I'm watching this guy wrestle, I just kept thinking he kind of looked like a smaller version of El Ejido. I don't know why, like even the mask, it kind of like, it didn't really have this real, he wore a white-looking mask, and it just didn't really, he just came across, and with those pants, you just knew he wanted to pull them off. So he basically had to wait 3 matches to finally pull off his pants. He did it against Magia Blanca. Magia Blanca, the last time prior to this tournament, the last time I had seen him, he worked a Friday show, and he looked really awful. But in this tournament, he looked good. Good. He didn't come across that, that special, like that big of a guy who you're going to think, oh, this guy's going to be a future star. I think really without Adas and Templario, you kind of lost that out of this tournament. Sangre Imperial, a guy who's always looked really bad in most of the matches I've seen him in, he actually came off looking okay in this. He wasn't the worst guy in this. He might have been the second worst guy in this. I think Retro without a doubt was the worst guy in this. The good guys in this tournament, Maquiavelo, I thought looked good. El Coyote looked really good. George Quebrada looked good. Yago looked good also. Flyer looked good. And probably the guy I think stood out the best, that looked like the guy, like if you're going to go with technicals, the young technical guys, if Audaz is like the top guy coming up, I think Super Astro Jr. should be the second guy, because I thought he looked really good. He did a lot of stuff that was far better than anybody else in this. Coyote actually looked good too. I think if you're gonna rank these guys, unfortunately for the 2 guys that reached the final, I don't think they were the top 2 guys in this tournament. I think Super Astro Jr. and El Coyote were the 2 guys who really showed the most in this tournament. Coyote really impressed me. He did this really cool tornillo through the middle rope tornillo. I think he's done that a few times. It looked really good in this. He looks like somebody, he kind of reminds me like he could be one of the Hijos del Infierno, or he kind of looks like a better version of Pólvora. And for those of you who've watched Pólvora, know that he could be good at times, especially against Titan, and he could look really lost at certain points, or he could look good in tag team matches with Dragon Rojo Jr. He's all over the place. I think Coyote could be a better version of Pólvora. Super Astro Jr., while not at Audaz's level, I think he's probably like the next tier, kind of like up there with I think he could be up there right now with like Valiente and Stuka Jr., Reiko Meta, Triton. He's better than Esfinge. Blue Panther Jr., the Panther. I think he could be in that mix of guys. Giromai Jr., he could be in there with those guys. I think Audaz is the one guy I think could be up there with Volador Jr., Dragon Lee, Soberano Jr. One of these days we'll have to do like a where we rank all these CML guys, like in as far as what their position is in the promotion, because there's some guys who just come across as superstars, and when you look at the superstars, you think, would this guy have a shot at getting a WWE deal? Would they get an interest from those guys? Because, would they be in rumors? They don't necessarily have to be in WWE's radar, but would you envision this guy at some point possibly being, considered in WWE or with an American promotion or with New Japan, something bigger than just like working the same CML trios matches every single week, or, as headliners in CMLL, guys who you could see them, getting behind as potential superstars. I think Super Astro Jr. is kind of a notch below that, but I think he has potential to be there also. Really, I think they should actually have Super Astro Jr., Audaz, and, maybe put him in there with Rey Cometa as like a new Cadets del Espacio, since I think Solar and Super Astro Senior would be okay with that. I hate saying Super Astro Senior because, I remember seeing him when he was younger. Although not that young. He was already wrestling by the time before he probably started wrestling before I was born, so I think what I liked about this tournament most, beyond Super Astro Jr.'s performance, was how much, CML's focuses so much on the technicals, elevating them. Like every once in a while they'll elevate a new Rudo, and it usually is like a guys who are like from a family, like on the Rudo side, the family, or they're really talented. The family guys usually are like the Dinamitas, guys like that, Gran Guerrero. But then like you have like the special, super talented guys like Hechicero, Barbara Carbonario, guys like that. I think in this tournament, you kind of saw a lot of guys who, you could get rid of like Scandalo, Nitro, Arcangel, Sangre Azteca, Inquisidor. I don't think Kimura's even like he's not on enough shows to really consider him. Although you get rid of him also, but get rid of all of those guys, and you could have Yago, El Coyote, Maquiavelo, George Quebrada, Graco. You could have those guys work more regularly, and Principio then Junior already does. But those guys, I think they could do a lot more with those guys. Really, Yago. I know another Yago, El Coyote, Templario. Not quite 100% on Maquiavelo, but those two guys with, Yago and El Coyote, I think you could put them already with like Templario, make them a trio, or put them with somebody else, and they'd be perfectly good complements to like a guy who leads them on, if you want to form a faction with like Hechicero, or a trio with Hechicero or somebody like that, I think these guys would perfectly fit in with those guys. You could get rid of like some of the Hijos del Infierno. If you want to like keep Mephisto relevant, because he still looks like, physically, Mephisto still looks great, but his matches haven't been like, they're usually, he has some good matches, but his performances aren't as quite the level as they used to be. But if you really want to do something, you could add some of these guys with him, and he'd be, they could cover for him, and you could still keep him as a star. So we do get the final, Magia Blanca versus Flyer, another technical versus technical match. I think the one thing I worry about is that both of these guys can have these up and down type of matches, performances. Like one week they'll look amazing. The following week they might have like a little bit of a letdown. And I kind of worry about that with these two, especially with Magia Blanca. I'm hoping it's good. I think it'll be good just because it's a singles match and it's something different from, your normal CML show where it's just a bunch of trios matches. And like the one match that's different is either a match relampago or like the opening match that is a tag match. And that's really all you get sometimes. And everything else is just trios matches. So I think that's good and it's going to be in a Martes de Nuevos Valores. What better place to have this match? It would have been hilarious if they had it on a Sábado Retro. But yeah, this should be a good match. Like I said, I think they could have got more out of Super Astro Jr. versus Coyote than they probably imagined they could. I know when Audaz and Templario were taken out of this tournament, I was trying to figure out who they could go with. And everybody I think most of us assumed it would be Flyer. Magia Blanca trained by Ultimo Guerrero. So, I thought he was going to be just taken out because of that horrible performance he had on that one Friday show. But, they ended up going with him. I think I don't think CML realized how good Super Astro Jr. and El Coyote. Well, they knew El Coyote was good, but I don't think they realized how good Super Astro Jr. was. So that's something I hope they're on more shows on a regular basis. George Cabrera, I think, is also somebody that they could do a little bit more with. He kind of looked like Super Commando, with the bald head and beard. So he looks like he's somebody that they could also, like I said, he showed some promise. And I think that's what we want from these tournaments. You got to have some new blood in CML. We get so many of these guys who never leave CML, and even if they leave, like they'll leave like for a year or two, and they'll be back, and it's like you feel like they never left, because then it ends up being like 10, 15 years of them. I mean, Shocker went to AAA, and it's like that's like decades. That seems like decades ago, and he's still around. So yeah, that tournament was I think it was something good, something different. I thought it was better than, I think both tournaments, both blocks were a lot better than the two tag team tournaments that we had, just because I felt like they gave them a little more time, and we got to see some different people in those matches. It wasn't the same guys. You see a tag team tournament, you always assume Volador Jr., Ultimo Guerrero are going to win that. And this kind of, I think that's probably what they also wanted to do by getting rid of Templario and Adas from this. They probably wanted us to be like surprised with who they were going to pick. But I'm not sure. I think the best case scenario is Flyer wins. And I do think Flyer can actually fill in that role of a good third guy on a trio, higher on the card. I don't know if he's going to go all the way up. I don't see the same level performances that he's not at the level Soberano Jr. was when they moved him up, or Sansón, Cuatrero, and those guys. But he's kind of a little not. I think they probably should have had him win the tag team titles with Volador Jr., and that would have been a good way to use him a little better. The other news, March 30th, the Friday Arena Mexico show, Volador Jr. lost the NWA World Welterweight title to Matt Taven. Good match, surprising finish. I think the only hint that this might actually be the only hint that I think some of us probably would have considered this being a possible title change was that they changed the name. They dumped the historic part. So when Matt Taven won, so I always kind of thought maybe that's why Matt Taven won it, because maybe they would allow him to bring the belt to the United States and defend it. I don't know. I thought the match was pretty good. I'm not sure if Matt Taven's a natural welterweight. So that was one of the things that I think that was really the only thing I kind of like wasn't sure about. I think if you're gonna like use Matt Taven on a regular basis in Mexico, you pretty much have to make him like at least come across as a star. And I think this was something they had to do. I don't know where he is as far as a Ring of Honor, his place in Ring of Honor as far as his standing. Is he like a headline guy, where he ranks within their promotion? But if he's going to be a main event level guy in CML, they got to have him win every once in a while. The other thing from the Copa Nuevos Valores was that the winner of the match is going to earn a shot at one of the welterweight titles. It won't be the NWA World Welterweight title currently held by Matt Taven, but it will be either the National Welterweight title or the CML World Welterweight title. National is held by Soberano Jr., and the CML World is held by Mephisto, so we might actually get something like that. I am personally hoping they pick Soberano Jr. because I think Mephisto versus these two guys, while I think he could lead them, I don't know if it's going to be that exciting or that much fun compared to what it could be with Soberano Jr. Plus, Flyer versus Soberano Jr., they've been around together. I'm pretty sure they've trained with each other, so they might actually be able to pull some stuff off. The other news from CMLL over the past couple of weeks has been Cranio's turn from being a Rudo to a Técnico. He's been teaming up a lot with Los Ingobernables, with Rush, and the newly attired Bestia del Ring. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. Maybe you've been in awe. Maybe you've noticed some changes to Bestia del Ring. Possibly this new out. Maybe you're wondering, who is this guy? Maybe this guy doesn't look as bad or looks even worse. maybe you don't know, but he's wearing different. He came up with a new outfit. He's wearing more clothing while wrestling. And for those of you wondering who haven't watched him wrestle, he looks exactly as bad as he did before in the ring. In fact, I think the all that clothes makes it more difficult for him to move around and horrible. I don't know about this whole Cranio turn. I think Cranio, a lot of the fans online, Cranio pointed this out on Informa recently, that a lot of fans are saying, well, he's going to turn technical because they need to fill out Super Porky's spot as the chubby luchador, who the fans like. And he said that wasn't true because nobody can fill Super Porky's spot. He was being he was being respectful and stuff, but it really is him filling in that spot. I mean, what other reason is there? I think best case scenario in this feud is that we get a Cranio versus Rush singles match, which I think is perfectly fine. Cranio can work. He's pretty. I mean, I think a lot of people because he gets thrown into a lot of these trios matches where it's like Bestia del Ring, Pierrot, Diamante Azul, a lot of these guys who aren't good, or he doesn't get these really great singles trios matches. But when he's in there with good trios good trios matches, or in good singles matches like he had with Hechicero, he gets to show that he does have some skill. He could work. He has Mije. I think he's actually had some good matches with Marco also. So you do get some good matches from him. This won't be because I have a feeling we're gonna get a Bestia del Ring versus Cranio singles match, which I don't think none of us really want. I think the highlight of this whole thing was of this turn has been Cranio. The last match they had, they decided to do the football spot, and after Bestia del Ring, kicked the imaginary ball to Cranio. Cranio does his whole thing with the imaginary ball, and rather than passing it over to Rush, he kicks it out to the crowd, and and celebrates. And that did not please the Ingobernables. I love how this is feud. The highlight is playing with an imaginary ball. I don't know where this leads after. Another feud that happened these past couple weeks that's been featured on CMLL is Princesa Suhei has been feuding with La Seductora. Seductora has been appearing a lot more shows. So I'm guessing there's going to be a big payoff at some point with them putting their hair on the line. It could be the 62nd, the Arena Mexico 62nd anniversary show. It could be I don't think it'll be the Kids Day show. It could be some show in May. I don't know if Seductora versus Princesa Suhei is going to draw, but I'm guessing they're probably going to have to, judging by some of the reactions some of the women have with how their big matches need to be more featured or more pushed. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to do something where they put it as a semi-main event or something. I don't think they would do that. I think best case for the women is that they get the fourth match spot. But, I don't really know if people are really that thrilled about a Seductora versus Princesa Suhei hair match. This past Friday's show, the show wasn't very good. Really, the one match you should watch. I think most people actually skipped this show because they were watching other stuff that weekend, being WrestleMania weekend. Friday night, I think there was the WWE Hall of Fame was airing, and I was watching the Lucha Underground versus Impact show on Twitch. So I ended up watching this the following day, and really the only thing I thought that was really good was the Guerreros Laguneros versus Dragon Lee Místico and Titan match. Everything else you could pretty much skip. Valiente versus Stuka Jr. in a match for Lapago was really short, but I thought it was pretty good at certain points. They tried to build up a Negro Casas versus Sam Adonis feud, and they were going to have a match for Lampago the following, that was going to be the next thing, but they ended up switching it over to Negro Casas versus Soberano Jr., which is going to be a lot better. They like I said, the big thing was the Cranio turn on Los Ingobernables. Kawado-san, again, I watched him and he didn't look that impressive. Hopefully he improves at some point, but he still hasn't. The Saturday Arena Coliseo show, the 75th anniversary of Arena Coliseo, they actually did post it onto YouTube the following day on a Sunday. You could, I think they did post it on Sunday. They said they were going to post it earlier, but they posted it a little later. And you could watch that. It's on their YouTube, on the CML YouTube channel. And nothing really happened on that, really. Watch the third match. Audaz, Guerrero Maya Jr., Rey Cometa beating Puma Tiger Virus. That was the best match on the card. If you're an Estrellita fan, that's where you could find Estrellita. She looked, she had her nice outfit on. But the match itself was horrible. Might have been one of the worst women's matches I watched. La Vaquerita didn't make the show, so they had Dallas subbing for her. So they basically had 4 Rudas and 2 Technicas. And basically the Rudas attacked Estrellita and Marcela. It was really not a good match. The rest of the show was really boring. Not good. The 2 Legends tag matches weren't that interesting. I hope CMLL doesn't start thinking about bringing Fuerza Guerrera in regularly. He didn't look that great. Yeah, he didn't look good at all. Satanico, I saw some people say that he looked like he has skipped a beat, and yeah, he does. He does look a lot worse. I thought the only thing that looked kind of good was Nero Casas versus Solar and Super Astro whenever he was in there with them. But even that stuff, the match just looked really slow. It wasn't that entertaining. I wouldn't blame you guys if you skipped that. I know, it just like on a weekend where there was so much other wrestling to watch, I thought that was probably the one thing you could have skipped. The other match that I watched was the Puebla show. The main event was Caristico versus Mystico. Caristico won the match. I thought the match was okay, good. Really surprised that they put the crowd was clearly behind Caristico, but I was really surprised that, I don't know, I should say, I'm not surprised, but at the same time I am surprised, because you would think somebody in CML would say, let's save the first time ever singles match between Caristico and Mystico. Let's save that for one of these events that we've had within the last 2-3 months. They've had Dos Leyendas. They've had the Arena Coliseo 75th anniversary show. They could have put this in if they really want to do something special during the week that there were so many tourists. They could have had this on one of those shows. I know Puebla got packed, but I mean, really, you want to do this in Arena Mexico to get a good crowd there. That's where you're going to get a lot more people than Puebla. They could do it. They could have done this for the Arena Mexico 62nd anniversary show. I think that probably would have been those really were, I think those two would have been the ideal spots for this. And instead they do it on Puebla. Tons of heat for the match, but I think they probably made the mistake of not having the first time ever match. They could have planned it better and actually gotten a little more hype for this. Caristico, after the match was on Informa, was asked if he would consider a mask or character, a character match, kind of like LA Park versus La Parka in AAA, where not only was the mask on the line, but the entire gimmick was on the line. Which, the result was basically LA Park saying he wanted nothing to do, he was okay with the guy continuing as La Parka because he established himself as LA Park. So, that probably would have ended up happening with Caristico versus Mystico anyway. So maybe that would have. I think the only difference was, it wouldn't have been the big beatdown that would. The only difference if they did that match and ended up with that same result was that, Caristico would have given a little more offense to Mystico as opposed to LA Park just beating the crap out of La Parka for 20 minutes. Yeah, that I thought that was really the thing that I kind of was hoping that they could have had that on a Friday, really, and instead they put it on a Puebla. The big news in Lucha Libre over the past weekend, and we still haven't gotten Alberto El Patron's side of things, but I think the big news was really Impact firing Alberto El Patron. What a 48 hours, unbelievable. And it could, I mean, you could say unbelievable, but it's Alberto, so you kind of expect it. Anything could happen with this guy. I don't know what in the world this guy is doing with his career. I mean, I know he said he's going to retire within a year or two. Maybe he's just trying to get there a little faster. Who knows? So Alberto shows up for the Impact press conference on Friday to talk about the Impact pay-per-view where he's going to wrestle in the main event against Austin Aries. They're hyping that up. He shows up for that. So that later that night, they have the Impact versus Lucha Underground show at WrestleCon. And as the show's going on, I think somewhere around the match or two prior to the main event, Josh Matthews and Matt Striker bring up that they have an announcement to make for the main event. I think they did that 2 matches prior, and then like during the match, they announced that they had turned the main event from a tag match that was featuring Alberto El Patron to a 3-way match that was going to be Austin Aries versus Pentagon, Penta El Cero M, and Rey Fenix. So Josh Matthews and Matt Striker start talking about how they don't really know what's going on with Alberto El Patron. All they know is that he's not there, that they would probably get more information later on. So we get that. We end up I thought the match was an upgrade because I think anytime you get rid of Alberto out of a match, I think it's always going to be a lot better. I don't think he's that great. That's my opinion. If you disagree, that's fine. So then the next day, Saturday, Impact releases a statement saying that they had just fired Alberto El Patron. What? That was unbelievable. I said 48 hours. It was actually 24. It really was 24 hours. Just amazing that this guy within one day, 24 hours, went from being in a main event for Impact to being fired. I mean, I'm waiting for the excuse, his excuse. What happened? Really weird. I think that I don't know. I think perhaps they were gonna change. My guess, and I don't know. I haven't heard anybody else bring up any reason why they thought maybe he would have quit, or why he wouldn't go to why he no showed the Friday show that he was scheduled for. But I'm guessing maybe he just didn't want to be. I'm guessing maybe Impact was thinking of changing that the pay-per-view main event and adding Penta and Rey Fenix into it. And maybe he didn't like that idea and, threw a tantrum or something and decided not to do it. Who knows? We'll get the story at some point. I'm sure Dave Meltzer's going to have it on the Observer at some point, or somebody else will we'll release the juicy details of what happened. The Impact versus Lucha Underground show from that Friday, I thought it was good. I think there were a couple of matches I thought were really good. And then there were a couple of matches I could have done without watching just because I thought they were okay. But, there wasn't anything that bad. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, there were a couple of nostalgia. The Teddy Hart teaming up with Scott Steiner thing was kind of funny. Probably would have been the one match I could have really skipped because, Teddy and Scott Steiner really don't have much to add. Although I will say Teddy Hart did this really cool spot. And I think there's a lot of stuff that Teddy Hart has done in wrestling that gets overlooked by him, like in the ring, not the outside the stuff or like his promos or anything that, anything you get out of the ring. I'm talking about in the ring when he's wrestling. There are certain things that he does that I think like if another guy did or has done, we would totally mark out for. But when Teddy does it, it's just, Teddy's doing being silly or Teddy's doing that. The show itself, it opened up with a 6-way match. Matanza Cueto ended up winning, beating Caleb Conley. It also included Chavo Guerrero Jr., Jack Evans, Moose, and Matt Sydal. The highlight of this was right before this. I think a couple days prior to this, when that match was announced, Jack Evans mentioned that it was weird that he was in this match considering he doesn't work for either company, for either Impact or Lucha Underground. And I asked him on Twitter if he was in season 3 of Lucha Underground. Got no response. I think he probably realized he probably said too much, and then because I know there were a couple of other people who were asking him also about his comment about Lucha Underground, and it took a couple of days later for all that to come out that he was no longer part of Lucha Underground. Second match on the show was Ali beating Taya Valkyrie to retain the Impact Knockouts title. I thought this was a good match. Taya did a really good job of being like the bully in the match, the Ruda, just picking on Ali, and I thought Ali did a great job of doing her comeback during the match. Really thought this was a good match, and I think if you watch Taya's growth in Lucha Libre over the years in wrestling, really, if you first watched her in AAA, you kind of notice that they basically focus more on her, as a valet or as a second, and to like, Paraguay Jr. and other people, but like when she would get into the ring, have matches, she really looked very robotic, and she kind of looked like she was a little lost, including some of the stuff she did. You sometimes wondered what Lance Storm was teaching her in the ring, and now when you watch her, she's kind of finally figured out what works for her. She's a heel, and she does that really well. And I thought that her matches are a lot, they're a little more smoother now. They're not as they don't look. She doesn't look as robotic in the ring anymore. She's really improved overall. I really liked Ali. I don't really watch a lot of Impact. I thought she does a really great baby. She does a really good babyface comeback, and especially in this match, I thought this was a good match. After this, we had Scott Steiner and Teddy Hart beating OVE, Jake Christ and Dave Christ. This wasn't very good. I think people were just amused of the tag team pairing of Scott Steiner and Teddy Hart more than anything. But it was a very, very good match. The fourth match on this was actually pretty good. King Cuerno teaming up with Aerostar and Drago to beat Andrew Everett, DJZ, and Desmond Xavier. I thought this was good. I don't know, other than King Cuerno, I think everybody else looked really great. King Cuerno looked very underwhelming. I don't know if maybe it was like the cut he got like cut on his chest, and it looked pretty bad. And he ended up like he came in wearing a shirt, took it off, and then when he started bleeding, he put the shirt back on. So I don't know, maybe that was bothering him, but he didn't look very good. It's funny because I told Rob Viper that I think people expected King Cuerno from Lucha Underground, and they ended up getting Hijo del Fantasma from AAA, which is my way of saying Hijo del Fantasma hasn't looked very good in AAA this year, and he didn't look good in this one. But the other guys looked really good. I thought they did a great job. Lots of great dives. A fun match. Definitely something you should watch. It's still up there on, I think, Impact's Twitch channel. And if it's not on Impact's Twitch channel, it's on AAA's Twitch channel also. If you want to watch that match, that's really good. After that, we had Trevor Lee was supposed to wrestle Famous B, but Famous B decided that he wasn't going to wrestle, and he instead brought in a one-day only client. Turned out to be Marty the Moth, and I thought this match was okay, not that great. Trevor Lee won. It was really just, I think this was just something that kind of just was there to like, keep us like just for the next, it just kind of just wasn't that great. The sixth match, and I thought this was probably the best match on the card, was LAX beating the Mac and Killshot to retain the Impact Tag Team titles. This was really good. LAX, I've seen a lot of the Mac and Killshot because I watch a lot of Lucha Underground, and I've been very impressed with, and I also the Mac because he's from Los Angeles. He's wrestled in Los Angeles a lot, so from this area. So I've seen a lot of him. Killshot, I've become a big fan of his just because of the stuff that he's done in Lucha Underground and stuff, and I've seen a few things of his on the indie scene. LAX I've probably seen less of. I've seen them a few times on Impact and a few times like on other stuff that they've done. But they were really impressive in this, and I really liked this match. I think you should this is definitely, if you're going to only pick one match to watch from this is the one match you should watch. Really, a really good match. Really enjoyed it. After that, we had Brian Cage beating Eli Drake. These two guys in their past were a tag team called Border Patrol, and they would work, here in California, and also, I think they traveled a few times in Mexico as Border Patrol, but this match wasn't that great. I thought this was more of this kind of felt like a 1980s type of match more than anything else. The next match was an I Quit match between Jeremiah Crane, Sammy Callahan versus Eddie Edwards. Jeremiah Crane ended up winning the match because Eddie Edwards, I think he was knocked out or something like that story-wise. He never said I quit. Actually, the refs just stopped it, but I thought this match was. I think some people might like it more than I did. I kind of just like I said, if there's a lot of furniture involved in a match, I'm just not really as into it. It has to be really like well done for me to really enjoy it, and I'm not sure this was at that level. But I thought it was pretty good. I mean, for that crowd, I think if it's something you like, I think you would enjoy it. I wasn't that into it as much as others might have been. The main event ended up being Penta Cero Eme beating Rey Fenix and Austin Aries in the three-way match. Good match. I think they left enough for a rematch, which they're of course going to do for the Impact pay-per-view. Only this time, Aries is going to defend his the Impact World title on that show. That should be good. The other news from Impact versus Lucha Underground show was that they announced after the very first match, they announced Lucha Underground Season 4 start date would be June 13th. And that's something to look forward to. I think there's some stuff that I'm interested in watching, but there's a lot of stuff that I've seen on spoilers that doesn't really seem like something I'm dying to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of like farewells on this season, considering all the guys who have kind of been announcing that they've been released or they've parted ways with Lucha Underground. So that's something else to look forward to. Like I said, Jack Evans and Angelico both announced that they had left Lucha Underground. I think Angelico, we kind of had a feeling for a while because he's been in Europe for the last year or so. I don't think he was at the tapings, the season 4 tapings either. So I think we had a feeling that maybe he was gone already. Just a matter of, him finalizing the agreement to leave the promotion. That's, it's kind of disappointing to see. Like I think it's good to have turnover for a promotion because that way you don't have to see the same stuff over and over again. But I think we could have got more out of Angelico and Jack Evans and Lucha Underground. Angelico was always hurt, and the few times he wasn't, he did pretty well. I think that really was the place where he made his name. Jack, I gotta think that every single time every season he had something was like his face was broken, jaw broken. Something was always broken with Jack during the 4 seasons of Lucha Underground, and I think he was another guy who could have added more to it. He could have done more. That's pretty unfortunate. I think, when season 1 first started, I think there were a lot of rumors that WWE was interested in Angelico. And I think that's a lot. I think that's what's happening with a lot of and I don't know if they were as interested in Jack Evans, but I think that's what's happening with a lot of the guys with Lucha Underground. I think they were expecting 7 seasons would be done within like 3 years and they could move on to like something else. And it's kind of, the process has been a little longer than they were expecting. And some of these guys have actually gotten some interest from WWE or, New Japan or some other place they would like to work, and they can't. So I think towards the end, with the deal with Impact and them allowing guys to work elsewhere, internationally and stuff like that, I think Lucha Underground had to change the way they were treating these guys. And it's weird because the one thing is you have Lucha Underground allowing these guys to work elsewhere, but then you had AAA just making their guys' lives impossible, especially Rey Fenix and Penta Cero Eme, where they couldn't work certain places. So I think there was a part where these guys just realized, we just got to like split from this completely. I could see Angelico going to WWE at some point. They're always going to be adding new talent. I could see him, maybe they're the Europe, the UK show or whatever they're going to do. Maybe he could be on that. Jack, I'm not so sure about. The other news from AAA, really the only news out of AAA is Vampiro may have retired, but then again, he may not have retired. You'll have to stay tuned for all Vampiro updates on whether he's retired or not retired. You can visit luchablog.com. You can visit Luchablog's Twitter account. He will keep you updated on this news. I won't, because usually when I find out about it is when Cubs fan actually post about it. That's when I find out, and I don't know. I don't know if he's going to retire or not. He says he's got a bad back or something, or he's in pain and He doesn't look good in the ring. And he did this long long post on Facebook about how bad he's been feeling and everything that's gone wrong and all this stuff. And I don't know. That's Vampiro. 1 week he retires, 1 week he doesn't retire. It's interesting. If I would have done this show like probably last week around this time, the big news would have been this Zack Sabre Jr. story that came out. He did an interview during a New Japan show where he basically was talking about how Suzuki Gun was gonna rule the world. They were gonna rule the United States, Europe, Japan, and then he gets to Mexico and he says, "It's not Mexico. Mexico can fuck off." And Black Terry Jr. posted the clip of that, and wow, everybody from Mexico got very upset. Not just the fans, but the media, the luchadors. The funny thing is, like, the majority of the luchadors that got upset were from AAA, so there was no chance that they were ever going to get to work with Zack Sabre Jr. anyways. So, and then he also said he wanted to wrestle technical wrestlers. So these guys don't fit that description. But yeah, actually Garza Jr. was the other one that got upset about it also. So everybody was upset about it. Then Zack Sabre Jr. They posted a video of him in New Orleans, and he said that he loves Mexico. He didn't mean it the way he said it. It wasn't he didn't mean it the way it came out. He was talking about how every time he wrestles luchadors he loses, and he kind of like he was tired of losing to them, and he was upset at them, and that was what his animosity was directed towards the luchadors. And so he basically challenged all technical, not technical, mat-based luchadors, 2 matches. And he specifically mentioned Negro Casas, I think Negro Casas, Hechicero, and Ultimo Guerrero. So he mentioned CMLL guys. So who knows? Maybe at some point someone will show CMLL this video of what Zack Sabre Jr. said about Mexico, and then like his reaction afterwards, his response afterwards to this. Maybe somebody will show it, and maybe we might actually see him in CMLL. My guess is he'll probably just end up in Lucha memes. We might or might not see that match when it does happen, depending on Danny Ledesma's mood. And because he's one of those guys who never really, he's very undecided on what he's gonna do with his shows. But yeah, that was a really weird thing, and how everybody reacted. I thought it was funny. It's kind of like when us, and I try to explain it to a lot of people in Mexico. It's like when we make jokes about one city, we do that all the time, and it's like in the U.S. and it's like nobody gets that offended about it. But in Mexico, they very much got offended about it and just the reaction got carried away, really. El Santo was added to the legacy wing of the WWE's Hall of Fame. I think that was on last Friday night. That, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's cool. I mean, I don't know. Are they going to add Carbonario Galindo, Blue Demon Sr.? They'll probably add Blue Demon Jr. before they add Blue Demon Sr. That would just upset everyone. But yeah, I don't know what else they're going to do. The other WWE news was Garza Jr. and Ultimo Ninja are reportedly close to joining WWE. According to Garza Jr. Don't hold me to that. That's all Garza Jr. talking about that. I don't know if that's how serious that is, although I know Meltzer mentioned it also that was a possibility. We'll have to stay tuned on that. El Zorro has started a new lucha promotion called Chaos Lucha Libre. He tagged me in this, so I ended up having to see that retweeted multiple times. I don't know. I mean, it sounds like an interesting. I don't know. Like, really, another promotion featuring everybody who left AAA. That's what I'm expecting. Some bad news here in SoCal. One of the pioneers of Lucha Libre in this area Gil Arellano is in a hospice. Kurt Brown posted this on his Facebook page. For those not familiar with Gil Arellano, him, El Moro, I think it's him and El Moro, and I think Chivo Garcia were like the three people that really got Lucha Libre started in Los Angeles back in the early 70s. And Gil Arellano had a gym, Gil's Gym, or as it was known amongst luchadors, Gil's Garage, because it was really a garage where he worked on cars and stuff like that. But he also had a wrestlers training and stuff. If you've listened to this show, you've heard Kurt talk about it. You've heard Superboy talk about it. They've talked about the gym and everything that I think the last podcast we did with Superboy, they told stories of things that would happen at Gil's garage. So, keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Really one of the pioneers. And not only luchadors. I mean, you have a lot of guys like, I know Samoa Joe would train there for a couple of times, and there's a lot of American wrestlers who went through that gym, and they now you see what they've become in wrestling and stuff like that. That's something that like I said, keep Gil in your thoughts and prayers. More news in lucha. This past Wednesday on Informa, Gala Lutheroth and the director of this documentary series were on to discuss a new 5-part documentary series called Nuestra Lucha Libre, which I think if you've read one of the more recent Lucha reports where I talked about El Demasiado, he talked about this. He didn't name this documentary, but he talked about this being in this documentary. This is what it was. And it's basically a 5-part series. It's going to air in Mexico's Channel 22 every Monday for the next 5 weeks. And it's about Lucha Libre, how its effect on Mexican culture. And it's going to show you the luchadors, not just in the ring, but also outside the ring, how they act with their families and stuff like that. It sounds interesting. They mentioned some of the names that were in it. A lot of the footage was filmed in CMLL arenas, but they also said that they went to Coliseo Coacalco and a couple of arenas in Ecatepec. So there's a lot of stuff that they said that's going to be a little different from some of the previous documentaries. Should be interesting. I know they streamed I don't know what they said that it streams. The show might stream on Channel 22's website. I don't know if I could even watch that. I think that might be something that's geo-blocked. I don't know, but I'm sure if Cubs fan gets access to it, he might actually post it on his page, or at least put a link to it. Finally, I want to give everyone an AroLucha update as far as how their crowdfunding is going. The last update I got was a little over 82,000 with 120 investors. There was someone who actually asked about the 50K investment from one person, and AroLucha CEO Jason Brown responded and said that it came from a friend who believes in the project. I don't know. I mean, you never know. It's wrestling. There might be somebody wealthy who thought, this was a great idea and decided to invest in it. He said that it was somebody that actually not only believes in the project, but has seen how much work they put into it and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe. That's about all this week. Again, be sure to visit us at LuchaWorld.com. You can also support the site by signing up to the Patreon page at patreon.com/LuchaWorld, which features the Lucha Classica podcast, Lucha Magazine write-ups. Currently working on a write-up for 1962 or 1963, Arena Boxy Lucha Magazine. Also, I found I've been searching through 1989 magazines, because if you go on my YouTube channel, R&R Wrestling, you'll notice that I've been posting a lot of 1989 Lucha Libre, and I was trying to find dates for certain things, but I couldn't for the stuff that I need to find dates for. But I ended up finding this really cool boxy lucha that was covering the Southern Boys debuting in El Toreo and Jushin Thunder Liger's recent debut in El Toreo also. So that's something I want to write about. Oh, I also just added a new podcast for $5 reward patrons. The We Are Out of Time podcast. That's going to cover wrestling shows, TV and movies featuring wrestlers or about wrestlers, documentaries, and anything else that I might not cover on the other podcasts. As far as upcoming podcasts on Patreon, I'm thinking of doing a Lucha Classica covering the many titles in CMLL, where we'll rank them and give a little history on each title and how CML could benefit on how they use them. Because I kind of don't think they really use them properly. And, in many ways, I don't think they really, I think they try to give the history when they mention all these names of guys that have held the belts. But there's also, there's so many wrestlers, not just fans, but wrestlers who don't really know who these guys were. The guys who held the belts early on, or what they did with them and how important it was at that time. Also, thinking of doing part 1 of the Apache family feud as well. That should come up probably in May, after this the title history one. As far as for the next We're Out of Time podcast, it depends on which I see first. It will either be about the Andre the Giant HBO documentary or Boone the Bounty Hunter. Haven't really decided. It might be both. I think we could probably fit both in one podcast. I think it might be easier just to do them separately, just because if I'm going to use a picture or something, I don't want to you have Andre the Giant, but it's and you also get this other show. I think I just want to split it up. I think I'm going to do it just separate. Anyway, you can also visit our sponsor, Amazon.com. If ordering something from them, click through the link on our website, and they'll send us a few pesos every so often. Again, thanks everyone for listening. Hope everyone enjoyed the show, and we will be back again soon.